Hello everyone, it is LaughNgamez here. I'm back with another Starcraft 2 replay cast. Of course, it's in the series called I Played a Tournament. I may just rename it at some point to I Played because there may be some cool ladder games that I played that I may want to show off. And so there may actually be one of those coming up. But for now, we'll stick with I Played a Tournament as that's exactly what I've done. And that's exactly where this replay from I'm going to cast. So for you, those of you guys unaware, I do play mainly random at a master's level, but I do main Terran at a higher master's level. So I was playing a Terran versus Protoss. My opponent was the red Protoss, Salavanth. Pardon me. I mean, it's not that hard to pronounce. It's just a bit tough at first glance for that. So if you guys remember in the first game, I went for a Proxy Reaper. It's sort of a signature thing. If a mid-level Masters player, I guess, can have a signature thing, Proxy Reapers and TVP would be my thing. So it sometimes works out versus my opponents, and it's something I like, as I do have a hard time playing a straight-up Terran versus Protoss game. So in the first game, I did something similar to this. I ended up winning. My opponent wasn't really prepared for it. In the second game, he returned the favor by cheesing. And in the third game, I figure, hey, I got my win proxying before. I'll proxy again this time. So my opponent was going for a pretty quick gateway expand this time. Now, I'm going to be going for the Proxy Reaper. My opponent, however, he did go for quite a quick probe scout. As a result, so he sort of could figure, I mean, the first time I proxied the barracks, he's like, okay, yeah, he's doing the same thing again. So he's going to know what's coming this way, so he should have an easier time defending it. Pardon me. So basically, I've got my one proxy racks, and then I'm eventually going to start my own CC on this side of the map. Now, my opponent may try and block it with his probe here. I mean, that's something useful that you can do as the red guy while you're waiting. So I do have to bring down another SCV just to try and get my CC up, and eventually I get fed up and place it slightly off location. Ain't nobody got time for that probe shenanigans. I'm going to be too busy trying to micro this Reaper, and I don't think I do too well of a job here. I come on in with the Reaper, I start working away on a probe, he pulls them back. I mean, maybe I shouldn't have thrown my grenade there and I could have dived back on. I believe I will get one probe here, and then I'm forced back. Maybe going to get a second? He does a good job pulling the other probes. I may dive in to get this, and I will. So I get two probes here. However, I do lose the first Reaper, I believe, to the Stalker. There's one shot. There's... no. Okay, so I keep the first Reaper alive. And now back at home, I mean, I'm a player who can micro decently. However, the micro's not hard. It's micro while you're macroing, which is tough. I do accidentally rally in that SCV there into his main base. So I've got my two Reapers now. I'm sort of poking around, trying to find whatever I can, while trying to macro back at home to the best of my ability in this game. My opponent, he's lost two probes, which is sort of the acceptable losses to this. I try and get this probe, however, unfortunately I didn't focus fire there, so that one injured probe does get away, and my opponent's just been chrono boosting out Stalkers this time. So in the economic game, I'm not in too bad of a situation. About equal workers, going to be on equal bases. I will have to float over my command center a little bit, but not in too bad of a situation right now. And I still do have the two Reapers around, so I can go and scout with them out. I do let them sort of chill out here a little while. He's not aware that they're hanging out there. However, he does have his Stalkers. And then he starts producing an Observer, or an Immortal, briefly cancels it. Now, I am watching this replay for the first time. I didn't analyze what my opponent was doing. However, he has gone up to 3 Stalkers, and he is going to be following this up with a counter pressure. So I'm going to snipe off one probe, and then I'm going to try and get out of there. Both my Reapers are still alive in this instance, and I'm also floating back to my original proxy barracks while preparing to start my stim. At this point in the game, I'm a little worried about counter pressure. This guy has put on a fair bit of aggression at this point, but for now, if I can just macro, I think I'm in quite a good spot. He's made one Observer, he's moving across the map, but other than that, he's just sort of doing the standard Protoss macroing up, going for the Robo, so nothing super cheeky I need to worry about in this game. So I'm getting up my stim. I'm getting up a tech lab on a starport. I think I was planning on going Cloaked Banshee, as a matter of fact, in this game. I mean, I do like to go for Cloaked Banshees sometimes. It's really nice if you can catch an opponent off guard. I'm thinking, alright, don't necessarily know what my opponent's been up to. So I decided to try and go for this Cloaked Banshee. However, I mean, like I said, my macro and micro's not perfect. I send in my Reapers. I do end up losing the two Reapers for 3 more probe kills, which I think was quite a fine decision there too. Let's just sort of pause the game here. So In total, I've killed off about 6 workers for my small Reaper investment, so I'm in quite a decent economic situation. My opponent's macro, not perfect. I mean, we're not playing at a super high level here, guys, so he's floating a bit of minerals. Meanwhile, I'm just trying to macro to the best of my ability. I decide to start up the Cloaked Banshee regardless, and now I think the decision for this might have been a bit poor, as my opponent did already have a robotics facility. He already had 2 observers out, which I sort of should have clued into. So I do just decide to go back and macro at home, but ultimately I don't believe this Banshee will get anything done this game. But I am just sort of tacking into the standard bio behind it as well. Going to be making a siege tank or 2. I am a fan of siege tanks versus Protoss because of the room they give you. I mean, charge lots are quite good versus them, which is in the meta at the moment, but siege tanks certainly still do have their own room, I believe. As far as the macro goes, we're pretty much even on workers. We're pretty much even on supply. Tech-wise, neither of us are really running ahead. I'm going to have quite a decently timed stim, so I'm in an alright situation this game, I believe. So from here on out, I think I'm in just a pretty good situation. I bought myself a bit of a lead versus my opponent here, as my opponent never threw up a quick 3rd Nexus or anything like that. Although I believe he'll throw one up relatively soon here, and yeah, he actually is going to throw that up. But nothing too quick anyway. So my opponent, he's seen my cloak, so he's aware that this sort of investment is coming in that I went for. I know he had the observer over top of it. I mean, he's sort of seen the whole thing. There's his observer still right there. And so my opponent's gonna know that this Cloak Banshee's coming. And I do have the game in slower speed, by the way. I figure instead of trying to talk a million miles a minute, I can slow the game down a little bit so things are still going on, but slower, so I don't have to try and spit out my words quickly. So Banshee's going to come in, it's going to kill off 1 probe there, then it's going to head towards the natural. However, my opponent's well aware that this is incoming, so I believe the Banshee will cloak, maybe get 1 or 2 more kills. I mean, after all, it was a bit of a silly investment there, so not much damage for the Banshee. And then I do end up canceling the 2nd Banshee, I believe. I figure, alright, I'm not going to get anything else done with it. So while that's going on, I figure, alright, I'll start a 3rd CC on the main ground location. I never knew my opponent had this observer here the entire time, so really he could see everything, and absolutely everything I was doing. So I'm just going to macro up a bit more, getting my +1. My opponent's macroing up himself. I'm still in quite a good situation, all things said, despite that poor Banshee investment. Nothing too really worrisome. Now my opponent might have been looking to move out here, however, I don't think he ultimately does. As he's just trying to sort of posture defensively here. Sending out a Phoenix Hallucination is my opponent. Sends out a few this game, I believe, but he has the observer on top of my base, so really he can know what's going on. I'm really just macroing up at this point. Getting up my 3rd CC. My opponent's 3rd Nexus is a little bit quicker than mine, but I have been producing more workers than my opponent. He's really just been focusing on the army, it seems. He never did get charge, and he hasn't invested in charge just yet, which is the common Protoss sort of play. So really, I mean, my play not been perfect. My opponent's play not too perfect. I mean, it's not like we're pro level Starcraft players. It's not like I'm Innovation and he's Zest. But so yeah. So I mean, this is just my thoughts. I'm thinking, all right, I'll go for a timing attack. So really, I'm just waiting on my medivacs before I decide to move out. And my opponent, I guess, he just sort of has been building up his own army here back at home. 3 Immortals is quite scary. I do scan just to confirm what my opponent has. I see that he doesn't have any upgrades just yet. I've already got +1 attack done. I'm going to have my +1 armor on the way as well, and be starting my 2-1 relatively soon as well. So I'm quite confident in that regard. My opponent, he's getting these Zealots, he's investing in charge, he's getting up the Templar Archives, but at this point, I'm getting ready to kill, or ready to move in and try and kill my opponent. That missile turret, by the way, also did allow me to kill off an observer. I just figured I'd throw up a random one there just to be safe, just to catch any rallying observers, to catch any potential DTs or anything like that, as I haven't had tons of information this game. Opponent throwing out a scouting probe there. He does, so he will see that I am coming in for this attack right now. I mean, he's trying to sort of poke back for position, abuse the siege tanks there. However, he is going to eat a shot or 2, it looks like there, so bleeding off a unit or 2. We'll be able to force field to save, but ultimately he does lose 1 or 2 sentries here. So my opponent right now, He's just trying to do the best that he can to defend this. However, it is a bit of a abusable position. Well, siege tanks are always abusable when it does come just to ground versus ground armies. Now, I do have these 4 siege tanks, and I decide I'll try something new on this map. This map is Blackwater, so I decide, hey, maybe these siege tanks can actually shoot the Nexus. My opponent's certainly now aware that I am shooting at him. I supply block him, actually. I wasn't aware. That's a pretty big deal that he couldn't warp it anymore, but I mean, he is throwing up 5 pylons there, so it's not going to be an issue for too long. So my opponent, he's probably going to have to shut this down or lose his Nexus, and he can't really afford to do that, so his fight will be forced in pretty quick here. Now, keep in mind, looking at the resources, we both have quite poor macro at this stage. I'm up on supply, though, as I did sort of just have the natural lead, so I mean, you guys can probably see where this game is going to be heading in. It's going to come down to the one big fight. That's sort of what all this build-up has been for. I decide I'll try and get ahead on things, try and kite back some units, as opposed to letting him get the big jump on me. So here I am, I'm kiting back with my Marines, I forced them in. Now my siege tanks, they were sort of out of position there, but they're still ultimately helping out. And then I force him back with the, as he does end up fighting into a concave there. And then I decide, alright, it's time for me to move in. My opponent's in quite a rough situation. Warping him some zealots. He still has the 3 immortals there. However, I've got quite a bit more army supply. I do have the better upgrades. I mean, his 2-1 will be finishing, but I will have my own 2-1, so we'll sort of be even, but I don't even think they'll come into play this game. One final fight's going to go down. He has a siege tank. Stalker's playing forward. However, there's more siege tanks than Stalkers, so I do manage to take this game. So if you guys were sort of aware of this series, I mean, I played a Terran versus Protoss. I won it 2-1. I mean, if I do play a lot of tournaments, chances are I'm going to lose a fair bit because a lot of guys are a lot better than me. There's a lot of Starcraft players better than me. So I'm going to go on to the next series eventually. I will likely put those up on YouTube as well, but the deeper you get into the tournament, the harder it is, and I am going to try and improve, but thank you guys for watching. If you have any feedback for my play, feel free to let me know. I mean, I'm always trying to improve. I mean, I really do know that my main issue is the macro front. I really got to improve on that. So that's really my main issue, but then there's other things like my commentating that can be critiqued, so feel free to let me know on anything you have to say about that. But I am always trying to improve in both regards, I guess, so if you have any feedback, let me know. But if you do enjoy the content, feel free to leave a like. Trying to hit 5 likes a video, and then feel free to subscribe as well, as I am trying to break that 1,000 subscriber mark, that dreaded 1,000 subscriber mark, so you don't get kicked out of the YouTube creator program. Otherwise, I shall see you guys next time, and thank you for watching.